I am living in the moonlight, and I live my life this way. Now I'm older, I can see nothing more to say.
Until a few years ago, I always played sports, mainly football. I did this with great pleasure and can confidently say I was obsessed with the game and still am. Football was my outlet. While playing, I could stop my brain from thinking and focus purely on the game. The constant movement and engagement with an opponent made the match always seem too short, and although it wasn't always physically possible, I often wanted to play another game right after. The game suited my physical condition well, and I can calmly say that I had a natural talent for it. This combination ensured that I ended up in teams of a decent level. Not professional league material, but a reasonable amateur level. This was often due to my dedication and will to win, which made people want to play with me. However, this did not extend to my interactions with my teammates. I don't claim that I was popular with my teammates. I always assumed, and did this for self-protection, that if you could play well, people would overlook your character. This was also instilled in me because I believed my playing style and effort were indispensable for a team. As mentioned, the will to win was a significant part of my relationship with my teammates. After a lost match, I was quite upset until the first training session on Monday evening. I could not and cannot stand losing, especially when it was an unjust loss. It may sound strange to a layman, but sometimes there are matches that you lose, even though the outcome seemed different throughout the game. The post-match discussion in the clubhouse often led to heated debates about who did what wrong and why we let the game slip away. Criticism back and forth. I never minded because you inevitably learn from mistakes, and something must go wrong/right before you can learn from it. It also shapes your character when you learn to deal with loss. This has nothing to do with shaping the male character, because women also play sports and experience the same. No, this is about shaping your character in such a way that it becomes easier to cope with loss despite all efforts to prevent it. You learn to fight until the last moment. When you experience this and learn to handle it positively, it can come in handy later on because life's reality demands this. Life, however, is not a game, and therefore losing suddenly becomes an extremely serious matter. Life is indeed incomparable to any sport or hobby. There are multiple ways of losing, and your life doesn't last 90 minutes with an optional 30-minute extension. You can't replay your life like a match if things didn't go as planned. I don't rule this out entirely, as string theory leads me to think differently about the afterlife, a new life in a new body with different choices. Reality ensures that it punishes you harshly. However, you notice that when you're used to losing and can handle it, life quickly returns to normal, and it all seems manageable. What concerns me more is the question, how many times can you lose before realizing whether life is just a game or something more? It's not bad to lose if you know you're supported by teammates and can share the loss. Shared sorrow is half sorrow. But when the loss is personal, what is the best way to deal with it? Is it acceptable to feel down and to allow yourself to feel terrible? The many forms of personal loss are countless. Losing your job, an impossible love, or, even more intensely, the death of a loved one are very different from a simple football match. It is always nice to share this with friends or family. It becomes more challenging when you have to process something like this alone. I deliberately say alone because there are people who live in isolation and don't have real friends to fall back on. Does this say something about the person or the situation? Neither. It is a reality that some people, like hermits, isolate themselves and retreat into their shells like a snail when threatened in their immediate environment. Is this pathetic? No. The character of such a person is simply different from the rest. You could call it self-pity, but is self-pity bad? What makes such people complain about themselves? And why does it seem like they enjoy wallowing in self-pity? I don't want to speak for others or give an opinion. I do believe that everyone should be able to indulge in self-pity. It can be wonderful to feel bad sometimes. However, when this turns into depression, in my opinion, it's a sign that help is needed. Should this help involve trying to bring the person back to a state where they meet the expectations and norms of their immediate surroundings? Or should one go along with their self-pity and try to trace the cause back to the number of setbacks and losses that preceded the current situation? These are complex questions without simple answers. The support needed can vary greatly from person to person. For some, returning to societal norms provides stability and a sense of purpose. For others, understanding and addressing the root causes of their distress might be more beneficial. Each approach has its merits, and finding the right balance is key to effective support. Chapter 13. More and more, deviations are recognized as illnesses. Even alcohol problems and drug addictions can now be addressed through interventions that encapsulate the issue within the brain. Stem cell research and the procedures that come with it are in full swing, and it's only a matter of years before hospitals will offer new body parts and more diseases will be overcome. Should you then use medication? When it's proven that a chemical imbalance in the brain causes someone to need medication for treatment, I can somewhat accept that. However, my experience shows that suppressing emotions with medication isn't always a solution for the patient. You are altering the most personal part of a person, their brain. I've also experienced that, unfortunately, it can't be helped sometimes, and that treating someone with medication can make them behave like a zombie, affecting many aspects of ordinary life. I am speaking here about my father. I knew he was mentally ill, so my father was severely sick. I experienced this multiple times. He was my father and was supposed to be my support and anchor. The times he indulged in excessive behavior were a daily ritual. Treating him with medication, however, transformed him into a silent person, immersed in his own world and fantasies all day. God knows what he thought about, but I can somewhat understand when I examine myself. According to my mother, he was a man with an unbounded imagination. He dreamed of improving the world. A hard worker, but spoiled by his own father, who died too young and shunned by his family because of this preferential treatment. A singing and drawing talent, but disadvantaged by his background. Nothing pitiable, as it was the fate of a boy born into a family of knife grinders and rag-and-bone men. The size of his family, 15 children, was also a determining factor in his life path. At a very young age, 15, he started working to support the large family, and soon after, at 18, he married the woman of his dreams. Up to this point, nothing special. His life as a young father, the eldest was the reason for the wedding even before birth, is known to me only through my mother's stories. Photos and videos didn't exist back then. As a father and educator, I remember little to nothing of him. Only the moments when he was clear-headed after several treatments in a psychiatric clinic stand out in my memory. Those were good moments. I was proud of my father and our outings, to artist by train, a ride on his rag-and-bone cart through the station tunnel, and finally, his enthusiastic behavior during a football tournament. I was a goalkeeper, and he was proud of his son's talent. These moments, however, pale in comparison to the times when he was not accountable and threatened my mother and the entire family with death. His nocturnal wanderings led him to the local department store, where he spent the night on a grate while my mother frantically searched for her husband. The concept of true, pure love has thus taken on a special meaning for me, and I am still grateful to her for that. Despite his mental illness and the chaos it brought, my father had his own dreams and aspirations, no matter how unattainable they might have seemed. He wanted to improve the world and had a talent for art and music, but life had other plans for him. The experiences with my father taught me that losing doesn't mean the end. It's about how you cope with the loss and what you learn from it. Ultimately, life's setbacks shape us, whether through personal struggles or the challenges faced by those around us. It's not about avoiding loss or failure, but about embracing them and finding strength in the lessons they bring. It's about understanding that, like my father's moments of clarity, there is always hope and the possibility for better days, no matter how dark the present may seem.
All the memories of my childhood, they will never fade away. can see they have taught me how to play.